We are all very well aware of everything Frieza is capable of doing in the Dragon Ball franchise. However, just like many others including Frieza and Broly, what if they decided to bring back yet another warrior back from the dead? What if it was possible for us to see the return and canon introduction to Cooler in the Dragon Ball Super franchise? On today's video, we will be discussing and breaking down the events of what it would be like to see Cooler debut in Dragon Ball Super next.
This is the Galactic Emperor of the Universe, and of course I'm here to tell you to subscribe to UnrealEntGaming and all his social media platforms. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you can be the first to know every time that he uploads a new video.
Oh, did someone say UnrealEntGaming? Oh my god!
The fuck's up, on? Put on some clothes!
Well, why don't you put on any clothes?
What? I don't need clothes, but Jesus Christ, that's huge!
Now, anyone who has been immersed within the Dragon Ball Super franchise knows by now that basically anything is possible in the world of Dragon Ball at this very current point in time. We've seen the resurrection of Frieza, we've seen the reintroduction of Broly, but what if it was possible for them to retcon and reintroduce another villain from Dragon Ball's past? What if this time they were to reintroduce the concept of Cooler and adapt him in the Dragon Ball Super franchise? Now, to further establish this hypothetical, Cooler has never appeared within the main canon of the Dragon Ball series before, nor has he ever established himself as a main villain within the main story of the Dragon Ball series. But what if Cooler had returned, more or less debuted for the very first time in Dragon Ball Super, scratching off everything we've known of Cooler previously and having to retcon him in Dragon Ball Super? Now, for starters, theoretically speaking, I do believe that if it is possible for Frieza to jump such gaps in power from having to establish himself from the Planet Namek arc and having to jump all the way to Super Saiyan Blue level in Resurrection of F, then I don't see why someone like Cooler can't also learn of this acknowledgement by his brother in also having to achieve a similar feat in discovering a new evolution just as Frieza did. Which in turn you can make the argument in saying that anything Frieza can do, Cooler can do just as well. That also implies jumping in power and discovering new transformations. So I do think to further establish this, in Cooler's revenge, Cooler was stated to be significantly more powerful than Frieza, and having to completely body Goku even after using Kaioken, that is of course until coming across Super Saiyan Goku, which pretty much put him down with little to no effort. Now, having to see what Cooler did in his return as Metal Cooler, it was painfully obvious that Cooler had gotten more powerful, as it took the combined efforts of both Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Vegeta just to fend off against one version of Metal Cooler. Now, having to disregard the concept of Metal Cooler and sticking by the original concept of what Cooler looked like, and having to compare Cooler to Frieza when it comes down to strictly genetics. Now, I don't think that Frieza or Cooler hold any significant increase in power over the other when it comes down to just pure raw potential. I do believe that whatever Frieza can achieve, Cooler can also achieve, as stated in Cooler's revenge. When Cooler was so desperate to find the further evolution, he did so in showcasing that against Goku. Now, in before anyone else believes that I am claiming that Cooler is equal to Frieza, no, at this very point in time, Frieza is significantly miles ahead of Cooler when it comes down to raw power, and anything else that is showcased being the fact that Frieza is canon and Cooler is not. And we've seen the potential from Frieza, but the only thing I am giving the two is their genetics. If Frieza can achieve something simply by training, then what makes anybody believe that if Cooler were to amount the same amount of training, that he couldn't achieve a similar transformation, if not something more powerful than what Frieza has under his disposal? Which boils down to potential, in me giving both Cooler and Frieza credit in their genetic potential in increasing in power ever so more, in having to catch up with the Saiyans, if anything, surpassing them just as Frieza did in Resurrection of F. Both Frieza and Cooler, I do believe at least, have the potential in rivaling the Saiyans in power, if and only if a considerable amount of training were to be done on both of of their ends. But being that Frieza is not a part of this equation, what if Cooler had returned in Dragon Ball Super after having to find out that his brother once again was defeated by a Saiyan, having to stretch beyond the events of future Trunks, having to stem into Resurrection of F, and learning the fact that Frieza had been defeated by Goku, but also having to come to the realization that once more Frieza had surpassed Cooler in achieving a brand new transformation. And I do believe at that given point, Cooler wouldn't be out for revenge and trying to appease Frieza's death, but I do believe that after having to learn of Frieza's evolution and having to become so powerful that he was even able to rival that of a Saiyan, who was able to achieve a Super Saiyan godlike form and ascending past that, I do believe that Cooler's first motives are to also train in getting stronger himself. Now Emish, I want to get your personal opinion as to what you feel Cooler would be like if he were to debut in Dragon Ball Super, and the beneficial add-ons that you believe Cooler would add on to the show if he were to become a thing following Dragon Ball Super's return.
The thing I think that separates Cooler from Frieza, though, is that Cooler clearly has the potential. He can clearly get stronger, and i.e. that's exactly what happens in Dragon Ball. Stronger enemies usually come, right? They push Goku, they push Vegeta, and it is what it is. It's something that we've pretty much gotten used to over the course of like forever. But the main thing that separates Cooler from Frieza is that despite Cooler being stronger, or despite Cooler portraying or showcasing his abilities to have more potential, that's all that he really has as a character. He's just strong, he has the potential, and like many other characters in the entirety of his franchise, especially for Super. When we look at Super, we look at all the universes that were ever portrayed, that were ever introduced, right? Everything, think about everything as far as potential is concerned. We never really got it. And I think Cooler is that kind of a character. I think Cooler is the kind of character who, despite how cool he is, that's all that you could really use him for. You can bring out Golden Cooler, you can bring out Silver Cooler, or Platinum Cooler, whatever. First and foremost, let me just say that I'm not a fan of Cooler achieving the same exact form as Golden Frieza, only because I feel like Cooler should have done his own thing with it. It could have been something similar, but something that establishes the form to be something that he thought up of himself, that he tapped into himself. So whatever, that's just me being, a little kind of nitpicky there. But generally speaking, Frieza, the thing that makes Frieza a significantly better character than Cooler is that Frieza has a motive. He always has a motive. He doesn't come back and do jack shit. He always comes back with a motive, with a plan, with something up his sleeve, and something about him, despite him and Cooler sounding somewhat similar, Frieza, and it has nothing to do with him being an established character, Frieza, but he's kind of earned his position. When you think about Frieza, when you think about Cooler, and as much as we would like to see Cooler, Frieza just in general is a way, way, way better character. So when you see someone like Frieza just come out of nowhere with a plan, he's stronger, he's doing something, it feels that much better because he's an established character
Frieza was
already.
built that way too.
Well, yeah, and he's just a good character overall. It's not like he's a bad character. He's a pretty damn good character, which is why initially when I heard news of him coming back and us not getting Majin Buu in Tournament of Power, I was salty as shit. Not because I'm a fan of Majin Buu, but only because I felt like we were done wrong as far as the fan base is concerned after seeing him fall asleep in the Universe 6 arc. I didn't like that. That wasn't cool. Though it's very like his character to do something like that. I just didn't like to get trolled twice in a row. And then when I heard Frieza was coming back, I was like, all right, it's market value. I wasn't really too fond of it. But when I saw how he was portrayed in the Tournament of Power, it felt natural. And then when I saw how he performed later on, even though he couldn't do jack shit to Jiren, he just kept coming, he kept coming. He didn't know how he would follow through with his plan, but he knew that he was going to do something by any means necessary.
Yeah, it was the effort value behind his portrayal.
So to get back into like, I guess the answer of this question, Cooler, even if he comes back, it wouldn't have that much significance only because he can't really hold a candle to Frieza as far as when you compare them side by side as a character. That's just how I see that. So even if Cooler did come back, yeah, it would be great, but it still wouldn't be the same as just doing something with Frieza.
What about his overall potential though? Because we know that Cooler possesses tremendous amounts of potential that could rival his brother when it comes to comparing them both.
He does.
So like, where would you kind of place that and seeing how Cooler would compare?
Right, I understand, but it's his lack of having some kind of a motive behind him that makes it irrelevant. It's the same thing as Cell. Cell was great, strong, a lot of potential. Actually, that's the perfect example. Cooler is like Cell in a way. All the potential in the world, insane amounts of potential to reach new levels of power, but his motive was shit. So despite that clash between Gohan and Cell being like one of the most memorable moments in the franchise, in my opinion, as far as Dragon Ball Z is concerned, right? We grew up on that. Cooler is like Cell in that regard, where despite how great of a character he could have been and how strong he could have been, it's his motive that doesn't give him the necessary oomph or push to allow him to capitalize on his potential. That's what makes Cooler a bland character, in my opinion. That's just how I see it. From me analyzing the show, from me just, you know, if I had to choose between Cooler and Frieza, yeah, I'd love to incorporate Cooler into the series, but what's the point if he has no actual motive behind who he is as a character? Even in Heroes, his motive for even getting another form was because his brother did it. It's everything is so it makes him boring, just like it made Cell boring, in my opinion, despite that arc having a lot of potential for them to go further. The Majin Buu arc was great because there was so much involvement, and even though Buu in and of itself was such a, like, he didn't really speak that much, once he started to absorb other characters and stuff like that, he started to develop character. He started to develop a sense of self, and that's what made him cool overall, because despite him being powerful, he had an actual motive of some kind. He was just a lunatic, so it was kind of okay for him. But for Cell, as someone as intelligent as he was, having the cells of Frieza, Piccolo, Vegeta, Goku and company, everybody and their mother, anybody who is literally relevant now, right? The most marketable characters in the franchise. What made him boring was his lack of motive, and that's the same thing that applies to Cooler, in my opinion.
What about, let's say, if the theoretical option were there for Cooler to come back? Let's say Cooler came back after Dragon Ball Super. Would you see it to where they kind of would place him in the same position that he is in Heroes, to where he achieves another evolution so casually just because he knows that his brother could do that, or maybe he does end up achieving a different evolution? Where would his placement be after we understand what Goku and Vegeta had gone through in the Tournament of Power? Let's say Cooler were to come back. Where would the placement be of Cooler in that particular situation, having to follow by fighting Goku and Vegeta? Especially with him having to, let's say, theoretically achieve a golden form, where would you place a golden Cooler from Dragon Ball Super then against, you know, Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta after the Tournament of Power?
Oh no, he'd be strong, there's no doubt about that. It comes back to the root of this video, to the root of this conversation, is that, well, yeah, we acknowledge that he has potential. The problem is, what can you possibly do with it? So it's like, we've seen, like I said, like I mentioned in my previous answer, there's been many instances of characters who, despite having all the potential in the world to how much they could expand to no end, legitimately, right? They just never really capitalized on that. Toppo, right. Jiren, literally everybody on Universe 11, the other 4 universes we never got to see. They could have done a little bit more with future Trunks. Trunks should have stayed in the present time to find the Tournament of Power, in my opinion, okay? That's that. They never capitalized on Tien. They capitalized on Roshi, but not on Tien. They gave us 2 episodes of Krillin having like this epiphany to want to fight again. He performed like shit in the Tournament of Power. Didn't really live up to expectations as far as I'm concerned, okay? Roshi outshined both of them completely. Then you look at Jiren overall, we got his character development a little too late when nobody started to care about him anymore. Ribrianna was a waste of time. I think, and the list goes on, right? So, as far as, I think this movie, the upcoming movie, as far as like the Broly movie that's coming in December or in January in the States, I think that is kind of like them starting a fresh new slate, right? To say, you know what, we're trying to put a little more emphasis on who these characters are and not how strong they are.
Character
so when
depth,
it comes down to, yeah, I mean, they don't need to be complicated, right? But you kind of need, you got to give people a chance to say, hey, I like this character not because he's really strong, but because he is cool, and this is why. This is why I like this character, because of this or because of that. The thing about Cooler is that you would have to bring him back in a way to where obviously he's related to Frieza. He probably doesn't like his brother, okay? He probably doesn't like Frieza. He's probably full of himself. And what is he going to do? Get revenge? For what? At least Frieza right now, we can argue this in the comment section. I know his motive isn't all that great. He wants to like supersede the Omni King and stuff like that. Well, how will he physically do that, right? But at least he has a motive, damn it, right? So that's what it ultimately comes down to. What is Cooler's reason for getting strong? His brother? That's not a very good motive in my opinion. So ultimately, yes, he has the potential, and he would probably be on par with Goku and Vegito, if not a little stronger than them, which would force them to surpass their limitations. That's what all of this stuff is about lately. So that doesn't really, that's expected. So that's what makes Cooler. And
it would be very interesting, I'd say, however, if Cooler were to arrive on Earth, and I think having to learn about Goku and Vegeta, maybe if they were to retcon his death, if he never would have engaged them to begin with, it would be really fascinating to see Cooler fight against both Goku and Vegeta. And very similar to Broly, we have Frieza kind of step in and fight his brother, because that was something that a lot of people in the fandom really wanted to see back in the day, and that was Frieza versus Cooler, because we understood, you know, in the first Cooler movie that Cooler really despised his brother, so people were kind of throwing out hypotheticals what would happen if Cooler fought Frieza, and it was unanimous that Cooler stomps. However, it would be much different now, seeing as to what could be if Cooler were to engage against Frieza and Goku and Vegeta maybe at the same time, not kind of adapting the same concept like Broly, for example, but maybe instead of encountering Goku first, maybe Cooler encounters Vegeta. Maybe there's more history between the two because Cooler knows of Vegeta's lineage, he knows about the King, the Saiyans, and whatever challenges him. We have a fight between Vegeta and Cooler, which I think would be really cool, really nice and cool, no pun intended. And then we have, you know, Frieza kind of step in. So let's say if you were writing the story and you brought Cooler back, what kind of an introduction would you give him? Would you retcon his original death and motives and bring him back fresh? Or would you kind of adapt the same formula to where he was killed off before, he kind of like came back in some weird way and then, you know, he executed his plan from there?
Well, alright, so a lot of people might disagree with this, and the reason I'm gonna portray this, like, this scenario is only because I kind of want to follow through with what's already been given as far as Dragon Ball Super's storyline is concerned, okay? So, I would do something with Universe 6. Mainly because Frost still exists, and Frost works with Universe 6 Saiyans. I would do something with Universe 6, a Universe 6 variation of Cooler. That way, it's not really, that's what I would do. Something like that.
So it's not Cooler, but it's a similar concept to Cooler.
Yeah, it's this, like, literally what they did with Kale being Broly of Universe 6. And then
would he be related then to Frost, maybe? Well,
I mean, as far as that's concerned, I'm not sure. You can really go either way. But the fact that Frost still exists and the Frost worked with Universe 6 Saiyans kind of dictates a lot of things. You know, it just dictates that there's still an ever-expanding universe, that being Universe 6, that we haven't really fully discovered. And because of that, the doors and the possibilities are endless at this point. But Universe 7 is pretty much... There's not too much you can do other than expanding elsewhere. And I think Universe 6 is your best bet. I would do something Universe 6. I would give you a Cooler, but not the actual same Cooler. So I would give a Universe 6 variant, which is still acceptable to the fan base, in my opinion. But something along the lines to do with that, because Frost is shit. So the best thing that you can do, that would be the best chance to say, you know what, we don't really need Cooler in Universe 7 because we have Frieza. He's awesome.
Right, but then looking at his power, if you were to bring him back or maybe adapt a similar concept to Universe 6, how strong would you make him? Because of course for me, I wouldn't want to see him be anywhere near Jiren level. I wouldn't want him to be anywhere near perhaps Ultra Instinct level. Maybe take him down a notch or two. I would like for him to be comparable to Kaioken or Blue Evolution, just for there to be an actual, you know, fighting effort on Goku and Vegeta's end to fight someone that's significantly as strong as them. But what about you? Like, where would you say it would be logical for them to place Cooler in terms of power if he were to come back?
Well, I mean, he has to be something worth contending with, ultimately, right? So that's what it comes down to.
Not anywhere near Jiren level, though, right?
No, because right now Goku's not there. So it's like, that's why they kind of did this whole UI was an accident thing. Goku needed the power of MUI to even smack Jiren around, and he doesn't have access to that, which he clearly admits to. And just, yes, I know Goku and Vegeta are a lot stronger, but they're still, based on the implications, based on the context and how they chose to portray the script as to what's being said, you know, verbally by the characters at the end of the final episode, Dragon Ball Super, it basically dictates that, yeah, Jiren is now motivated to want to continue to get stronger, so is Toppo, and Goku's kind of fallen behind because, well, he needed the power of MUI, over Ultra Instinct, to even hold a candle to Jiren, and he doesn't have it anymore. So despite him being stronger, we saw that despite Goku and Vegeta getting stronger throughout the tournament of power, they still weren't able to do jack shit to Jiren, despite having 17's help. He collectively bodied all three of them collectively. So that basically implies that Goku still has a long way to go, and Vegeta still needs to catch up to Goku because he hasn't done the same thing either. So based on that implication, we could say, okay, well, that's what they're doing, and based on that, we'd have to say, okay, well, Cooler would be someone definitely worth contending with, but at least what this does is that it gives us the opportunity to provide a Cooler who was not part of Universe 7. It's a similar concept to Frost or something like that, because Frost is a garbage character, so we need someone for Universe 6 to represent them properly, because Cabba's not doing it. Nobody really likes Killer Khalifa because they're annoying, and Frost is just a letdown, so you gotta give somebody else, and let's introduce a Cooler variant of Universe 6. So, he just needs to be someone to contend with and someone with an actual motive.
Now, I really do enjoy the concept of seeing a different antagonist come from a different universe, perhaps Universe 6, since Frost wasn't really someone of importance in this show. I felt like they dropped the ball on Frost significantly, especially during the Tournament of Power. I feel as if somehow Cooler were to return, they could easily incorporate somewhat of an idea to where perhaps maybe he takes a different approach in his method to attack Goku and Vegeta. Perhaps maybe it isn't just simply about the Saiyans, but perhaps maybe Cooler comes back and wanting revenge on his brother, and maybe that sets up a battle between Cooler and Frieza. That would be something that a lot of fans, including myself, would love to see, but I personally think that when you look at the attributes and the skill set that Cooler possesses, it's widely noted that Cooler does possess qualities and traits that are far superior than Frieza's, especially if you want to go based off of the Cooler's Revenge movie, and just seeing how Cooler spoke about his brother, how he was a pest and how he was annoying and constantly trying to keep up with Cooler until Cooler discovered a further transformation. So I really don't want to see Cooler have a golden form. I think that if Cooler were to somehow be reintroduced, I think that they need to stay away from giving him the golden form and give him something entirely different, perhaps maybe a silver form, a platinum form, something that separates him from his brother, because Frieza specifically chose the golden form in ROF, and that would be a shame to see Cooler do the same thing, just basically mimicking his brother, when Cooler the entire time was someone that prided himself on doing things differently. So I also would love to see Cooler's character be a bit more exposed in his ideals and his ideology and his perception on not only the Saiyans, but his family as well. And I feel like Cooler would definitely work in Dragon Ball Super if done correctly, but it would be kind of a shame because they would throw him in there as some all-powerful being just to get eradicated by somebody by the end. But of course, in Dragon Ball, you need that to further establish the plot. So in the end, guys, we would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, if Cooler were to come back in Dragon Ball Super or make a debut in Dragon Ball Super, how do you think this would ultimately drive the plot further? What are your overall thoughts on Cooler's potential and his strength? And if he were to come back, how would you guys write Cooler in Dragon Ball Super if you had the opportunity to do so? Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, guys. Once more, if you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to punch that subscribe button, guys. Turn on all notifications for more to never miss a single upload on this video. Make sure you guys also go ahead and check out Emosh's channel. I will leave a link to his channel down below. Follow me on social media, guys. Instagram, Twitter, everything will be located down below, including my second channels. Once more, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.
This is the legendary Super Saiyan. Before I destroy you, I'm going to need you to subscribe to UnrealEntGaming and turn on notifications to never miss a single upload. Also, follow UnrealEntGaming on these social media platforms. And if you don't, I'll destroy you along with your entire planet.
What, Broly?
Frieza,
Uh-oh.
prepare to die!